Hello. Hello. Okay. Gopi.
Uh, I invite our chief guest, Dr. BBR Mohan Reddy Garu, to take his chair on the dais. I request our Vice Chancellor, Professor Vijay Kumar, also to take his chair on the dais. We commence the program with prayer. Young girls and you still use the mobile, you don't remember it. Okay, right.
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Mohan Reddy Garu, Professor Vijay Kumar Garu, Sanjay Rani Garu, Srinivas Rao Garu, Jagdish Rao Garu, Jairam Reddy Garu, YSR Rao Garu, Professor Mohan Rao Garu, other colleagues, Dr. Banu Kiran, all colleagues from Arcade Valley campus, and my young student friends. We are fortunate to have with us a very eminent, I would not call him an industrialist, but an eminent academic. I saw in him more an academic than a successful entrepreneur. Probably I, in my own self-interest, looking at him from my individual perspective, I think we have very learned and distinguished people online, including Professor Raj Reddy, Balakrishnan, Dr. Murthy, Satyanarayana, Professor PJ, and several other friends. I welcome all of them to this, I think, extremely important lecture. Sir, we, in the year 2020, instituted a memorial lecture in the name of Dr. Rajasekhar Reddy. The reason was that YSR was an inspiration for starting this university. And I personally thought, and all my colleagues agreed with me, colleagues who are currently working with us, colleagues who are worked with us, they all felt delighted when I brought the topics with them that we will institute a memorial lecture in memory of Dr. YSR. And we thought no other person other than Dr. Raj Reddy would be appropriate to deliver the first memorial lecture. Then the second memorial lecture was delivered by Dr. Kota Harinarayana. Dr. Kota was on the governing council of the university, apart from being a very learned, distinguished academic. When RGUKT was started, we all worked together. Dr. Kota, Professor Balakrishnan, Dr. Acharya. These three people were there, apart from a number of other bureaucrats. We started this, when we started this university. They nurtured this institution. And if it is something today, it was all because of the efforts that they had put in. And any inadequacies and problems, I own them. And they are not responsible. And in an institution of this magnitude, where you have 25,000 students, all residential, problems are bound to be there. But we are not limping, but moving slowly, but steadily. And I, as an uncompromising optimist, believe that this institution will have good future. We're going ahead in spite of all these limitations with accreditation. We have applied to NAC, and my two learned senior colleagues, Professor K.V. Rao and Professor Mohan Rao. I think all of us, that's what I tell my young colleagues. We at 70s and late 60s, we are working for the cause of this institution. But we are not going to be the beneficiaries. It is they, the students and the faculty. They need to get themselves involved. They own it. They own it, and that's the only way. That's about us briefly. And yeah, Dr. Mohan Reddy Garu was with us in RJKT at Nusvidu campus 4 years back. Delivered an inspiring lecture at Nusvidu for the alumni of RJKT, Nusvidu campus in particular. I still recall that day, and he enjoyed his association with us. We welcome you back to RJKT. And I've known him for more than 2 decades, and always continues his passion towards education, quality, expansion, equity, and more importantly, making education appropriate to meet the changing aspirations of the people and also to fit into the changing requirements of the global economy and industry. That's what always has written a beautiful book. And in fact, the day when I was one of the few fortunate people who received a signed copy of his book from him, I thank you. I remember that. I've read it from first page to the last page. I enjoyed reading it. In fact, I told our colleagues in one of our meetings with them, you must all read that book. And part of what he is talking today, I think he will give you the crux of what Dr. Mohan Reddy Garu not only believes, but an engineer who conceptualized some of the basic issues. See, some of you fly in the aircraft today, you don't know the crucial parts in the aircrafts. It was he who invented them and who commercialized them. And that's what is very simple. Just because he has traveled all the way to RK Valley, don't take him and say that, oh, Dr. Mohan Reddy Garu is like any other individual. He is different. As an industrialist, entrepreneur, but committed to the cause of somebody who is chairing the governing councils of two IITs. IIT Hyderabad and IIT Roorkee. And somebody who was chairman of Confederation of Indian Industry of the Southern region. And he was also, incidentally, a person who looked at the education area, apart from being the chairman of NASCOM, various ways of, I think he chaired not only the ACT, UGC councils on skilling, on education, a recipient of number of awards, both domestic and international. RJKT is fortunate in having him today with us. And personally, I owe an apology to him. We did not give him much time, hardly 10 days. And I was feeling really embarrassed to call him and then request him. But he immediately said, no, I will come. You don't know. A billion company, 6.5 billion company signed. They have a very important meeting in Bombay tomorrow. But he preferred RGKT to a Bombay meeting, a meeting which he is supposed to chair. Sir, we are grateful to you for your gracious acceptance of our invitation. I now request our Vice Chancellor to deliver his welcome address. And after that, we thought we will also request our Chairman State Council. If he joins, he might give concluding remarks. But we see after that, we'll listen to Dr. Mohan Reddy garu. Professor Vijay Kumar garu.
The respected Chancellor of RGKT, Professor K. Reddy garu, and today's guest, Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy garu, the directors, Professor Sandhya Rani garu, Professor Srinivas Rao garu, Professor Jayaram Reddy garu, Professor Jagdishwar Rao garu, and the senior professors, Professor K.V. Rao garu, Professor Mohan Rao garu, our Chief Administrative Officer Banu Kiran, I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy garu to deliver his lecture on this particular occasion. I think all the students, they know that our university is instituted series of lectures in memory of Dr. YSR garu birth anniversary every year. And this is the third lecture we are going to have. The first one is given by the Professor Raj Reddy garu, the founder chancellor of our university. The second one has been delivered by Kota Harinarayana garu. And now today we are having Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy garu. And whenever I used to address the students, I used to request them to be the job provider instead of a job seeker. That means I used to advocate them always to go with entrepreneurship. I think we have a living example today with us. Dr. B.V. Mohan Reddy garu is an entrepreneur. So whenever at the beginning there may be a risk, and those who are ready to take that particular risk, definitely they are going to shine. That's very, very important. And normally people say, if the girl entrepreneurs are going to be there, the economy in India will go high. So that's why I always request the girl students to become the entrepreneurs. And I just wanted to know about Dr. Mohan Reddy garu. Yesterday, I just watched some YouTube lectures on user. You may not be knowing, to my surprise, he has started the Infotech with about 20 lakhs. And today, he is worth of some thousands of crores. So that is the advantage of an entrepreneur. You can provide jobs, and also your career is going to be very, very good. That's why I request all the students, take a clue from this. You have a living example with us. You just listen to him, follow him, and become the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Anand.
So we have great pleasure in requesting you to deliver the third Dr. YSR Memorial Lecture. Over to you, Dr. Mohan Reddy garu.
Can I get the control, please? Presentation on the screen, please. Professor K.C. Reddy garu, Professor Vijay Kumar garu, senior faculty members, directors of the institute, my young friends, a very good evening to all of you. I deem it an honor to come and deliver the third Dr. Y.S. Rajashekar Reddy Gari Memorial Lecture. He was an admirable leader, a man with a great amount of passion to change the lives of people across the state, even in some instances outside the state. We lost him very young by every standard. We feel that certainly his demise was a big loss to the state of Andhra Pradesh. The history would have probably been different had he been around. We remember him for all his good that he has done. And wherever he is, let's wish him the best returns of the day by joining our hands for him. This was an amazing initiative that was put together by three architects. No denying it was Dr. Y.S. Rajashekar Reddy garu who blessed this initiative, but the people who architected were Professor K.C. Reddy garu and Dr. Raj Reddy. First time when I heard about this initiative, I was very thrilled about it. I thought an idea which would certainly change the face of the state. And I was fairly delighted talking to Professor K.C. Reddy garu earlier this evening when he told me that it does change. As much as 85% of the students come from rural background, about 60% of them come from the weaker sections, economic weaker sections. That's what the intent was. And I think they have a fairly good geographic spread in trying to make sure that we cover people at the mandal level. So for his vision, for his passion, and his amazing hard work. He mentioned to you that I went to Nuzuvidu 4 years back. I was driving back to Vijayawada airport. I was, as usual, talking to his driver and asked him all about how much does he travel. And his driver told me, who was this old confidant of his, that he was very tired, but sir does not get tired at all traveling. That's the passion he has for all of you to see a better future for you. Let's give a round of applause to Dr. K.C. Reddy garu. I'm truly honored that I delivered this memorial lecture after two very eminent personalities. both of whom I know. I've been associated with Dr. Raj Reddy for 10 long years. A man who I think everyone as an Indian should be very proud of. But I keep saying everybody around the world should be proud about for the contribution that he made to the humanity. The way in which technology has changed because of his vision is something which I think not many of us could ever even dream about. But I think what I feel that the most important thing that I learned from Dr. Raj Reddy, being associated with him for 10 long years, is the humility that he has and the empathy he has for people. That's an amazing quality in a human being. And I was blessed to be associated with him. I believe he is also on the call this evening. So let's also join our hands in welcoming Dr. Raj Reddy Garu. Professor Kota Harinarayan is also an old acquaintance of mine. I donned several different hats in my life. A large part of my life was spent in the corporate world. The company that I run has an enormous amount of exposure to aerospace technologies. We build the best of aircraft engines around the world. We help Boeing, we help Airbus build the fuselage. Or even if you want a more comfortable seat, many airline companies come to us for designing the aircraft seats. That's what we do, which are extremely sophisticated piece of equipment. In that area of aerospace, Professor Kota Harinarayan Garu, or Dr. Kota Harinarayan, who now has donned another new avatar of being an entrepreneur, is an amazing personality in aerospace. He's trying to do a lot of work now in drones and so on and so forth. So let's also join our hands to welcome Professor Kota Harinarayan. I decided to talk to you this evening on a topic which is very dear to me. And I should confess, and as rightly pointed out by Professor K.C. Reddy Garu, I'm not an academician. I'm not a research scientist. Truly, I spent a substantial part of my life, at least 40 plus years in the corporate world. I spent last 30 plus years in building a business. Professor Vijay Kumar spilled a little bit of the beans saying that, I started this company with 20 lakhs of my money. It's a publicly traded company. I can share with you, the company is now valued at 16,000 crores as the stock markets closed on Friday evening. More importantly, there can't be more bigger milestone, I believe, in the history of a company when a parent company lists its daughter company into stock markets too. That's basically one of our subsidiaries, which is fully owned subsidiary of us. We are listing in the National Stock Exchange on Monday. It's actually the issue is subscribed to give you a flavor of the goodwill, the confidence, the trust that we created with our investors. The issue is about 700 and a little over 700 crores is what we wanted to raise. And what we saw as a subscription is about 25,000 crores. That's the money that came into the bank by last week. So that's a reflection saying that I'm not from this world, but as an entrepreneur, not just creating the money, we created this money, shared this money with others. But more importantly, we created what is needed for this nation, and that's employment. I'll come to that as we move forward with my presentation. Entrepreneurship is not just having an idea, creating a business, taking risks. Entrepreneurship is also, to me, participating in nation building. Participating in nation building in creating jobs, in making sure that you dawn on yourself the corporate social responsibility. You also help the nation in building the foreign exchange. So my exposure to academics is very limited till about 10 years back. It's probably a little longer than that. I've been the chairman of the board of IIT Hyderabad for 11 years now. When I started slowing down from the corporate world, I thought, I should give back to the society and decided to work in education. And I spend about a third of my time. I've been spending a third of my time for the last 15 years on education. So therefore, I am very thrilled to be with you today because I love to come and talk to young people. If I can change even one amongst this audience of thousands of people around here with me in person, on the line, my day is made. And that's what encouraged me to come here rather than think about going and celebrating a party tomorrow evening in Mumbai. I'm also equally thrilled about one more thing today. It's an absolute joy to me to see so many of young ladies in the crowd. And I keep saying this all the time. No society, no family, no nation, no institution will ever prosper without a 50% participation of women. We have to be equally participative. That's how the world has progressed. And I'm delighted that actually I'm just trying to take a rough count. If it is 75% to 80% of the audience in front of me, I don't know what is the virtual part, is all women. Thank you very much for being here. You need to actually participate more intensely to change the face of this nation. Let me move on. I actually titled the talk today as Building Bridges, Breaking Limits, and Embracing the Engineer. It stops there on this particular one, but actually it was originally thought as in you, and we felt that in you was absolutely obvious. I'm talking to you as the audience right now. So let me then move on and tell you what I mean by saying building bridges, breaking the limits, and embracing engineer in you. Let me set the context first. The context is that if you look at technology and engineering at this point of time, the growth is exponential. I'm sure all of you understand this word called exponential. It's not linear. It grows leaps and bounds like the exponential curves that we have. It's the hockey stick effect that you see in terms of growth. Gordon Moore said in 1973 or 1974 that computers will become faster, cheaper, smaller. And almost 50 years have gone by thereafter. Still, computers are becoming cheaper, smaller, faster. That's how technology is progressing. Please don't mistake me that I'm not saying computers is all about technology or is the only technology. I'll come to that as we move forward. Just giving you a very good example of how technology is leapfrogging itself. It's not just computers, it's communication. The bandwidths are becoming faster. Bandwidths are having lesser amount of latency. And they're also becoming cheaper. I don't know, many of you may not be aware, the lowest cost for using bandwidth in any part of the world today is in India. So that's one of the reasons for it is all of you using it. The volume that we have, our thirst that we have in terms of embracing technology is the one which is bringing us more, the lowering of the cost. The second one is that there is this technology at one point of time got confined to a few areas. Actually, some of you may be familiar that it was called information technology. Why was it information technology? Because this technology was being used to gather information for people to thereafter take decisions. It is not true any longer. It's just not information technology. Technology today has become all pervasive. You can think about any industry, you will have an example where technology is playing a very important role. I'm sure in the second memorial lecture, when Professor Kota Harinarayan Garu was here, he talked about technology in agriculture. He talked about precision agriculture, how technology could help a farmer in terms of becoming more productive. There are endless number of possibilities that we see at this point of time. And therefore, we also want to tell you that today, as we see your future, don't think that engineering is just a career for yourself. Engineering in you can be a tool for changing the world, changing the face of the world, the way in which we address issues, could be far, far different from what we have done so far. So therefore, what I would do in the next half an hour or 40 minutes is to make sure that I do my best in terms of inspiring you to see how best you can be a part of this big explosion of technology. I'll start with three stories I have for you. I'm sorry if the light is too bright or you can't see what's there on the screen. But for those of you who can't see it too well, let me tell you what we have as the screen. It's basically a disassembled smartphone. And if you look at it a little more closely, that you'll find that this phone, I have mine somewhere, the phone that you have with you has as many as 5 layers in there. There are 5 discrete layers. Actually, there is a case on top of it. If I remove the case on top of it, then you look at the thickness of this equipment, and there are 5 discrete, means very clearly definable layers, one after the other. And this, of course, is a phone that was made by Apple. It's called the iPhone. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have an iPhone with you. But more importantly, the other people also make the phone. But if you go back, I don't know how many of you have gone back to understand how many subsystems are there inside this so-called smartphone. That's how we call it, right? We call it a smartphone. So it starts with, it is no denying, it's a mobile phone. It has a computer inside it. You can do everything like a computer does. I do my emailing. I do my surfing around. I use it for Chat GPT. We'll come to that in a moment thereafter. And so therefore, it has enormous amount of computing capability. And then it also had video conferencing. I'm on the street. I'm in my car, driving to the airport. I'm still on a video conference. I don't need a laptop. I have this small little device called the smartphone. So I can go on, and we have counted, I have counted as many as 15 of these discrete subsystems. And now actually they become more, because you can attach a small little device on top of that. And you can make it functional for 100 different applications, 1,000 different applications. So therefore, you look at what advancement has happened on a device like this. The key thing to it, and Dr. Raj Reddy and I used to talk about it long time back. He knew it much clearer than I did. So I learned a number of things from him, including this, is all about one thing called convergence. It was convergence of different technologies, which brought us into this particular mode. The second thing that has happened with this device, our ability to communicate with each other at a cost which is abysmal. Going back to my example, those 15 subsystems, we took, there's actually a hard document somewhere, we took stock of what would these 15 subsystems cost in 1980. These are all available, right? Things like the video gaming console, or a music player, or a digital watch, or a camera, all were available by discrete devices. If you took the cost of those devices and added together, in 1980s, it was $1 million. What is this device? Maybe about $400. Somewhere around that, it's hovering around right now. So what we are trying to say is that convergence happened, complexity got into one particular device, but equally important is the fact that the costs have come down quite dramatically. Now, in addition to this, what we also see is the type of impact technology has created. Can you take a guess at how many people in this world use a smartphone? Anybody wants to take a guess? How many people in the world use a smartphone? 100 people, 200 people, million people, 2 billion people. No guesses? No, I want it to be interactive. I want people to participate. You know the answer. Why are you hesitant? Why are you reluctant to stand up? 4 billion? Somewhere close. Thank you, whoever said that. Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause to the young man. It's close to that. It's 5 billion people who are using the smartphones at this point of time, out of approximately 8 billion people that are there. So look at the impact the technology could create. And the device, how old is this device, a smartphone? Variations were there. But the smartphone in what format that you see at this point of time is just 15 years old. The first launch of Apple smartphone was 15 years back, 2008. As young or as old as RJKUT. But look at the impact it has created around the world. 5 billion people. I belong to a generation in the 1980s, 1990s. I waited for 5 long years to get a phone into my home, not in my pocket, not in my hand, in my home, which means that it was a fixed wire-lined device. What's the luxury of life you have? Is there anyone in this particular audience who doesn't have a mobile phone with them? Who does not have a mobile phone? Put up your hand. Somebody put up their hand, but for calling somebody else, it is not for not saying. You have a phone with you, right, madam? You don't have one? You have a smartphone, yes. So look at the change that we have seen in the world. But more importantly, what I want you to recognize is the enormous amount of innovation that has happened in this particular device. What is innovation? Innovation is not invention, nothing new that has been discovered by people. They put together the pieces of technology that was available to find a new solution. They found a crying need for a phone. They found that there was a need for convergence of all these devices. You can't be having so many devices carrying all around. And Steve Jobs found this solution. So therefore, the innovation is all about, I don't want you to think that I have to be an inventor. I'm saying there's so many building blocks around you. If you can start thinking creativity, thinking on your own, you'll find solutions. And so if you look at this particular device, not many people knew much before what Steve Jobs did. So the first one, which became a gold standard, I think it's fairly light. Can you dim the light on the screen? I don't need a light here. So the first one that was important was a multi-touch interface. Till that time, you didn't have this impact called pinching, enlarging. All of you think it's so simple at this point of time. It's only a 15-year-old phenomena. Or hand gestures. You want an application to move, you just gesture at the application, it moves off. So therefore, it's a new innovation that came by. Till that time, nobody used it. There was technologies available. I think Xerox had some of these technologies with them. Or the second one is the concept called even App Store. They created a platform for the first time where you can go and buy your software. Till that time, that was not thought about. So therefore, now how many people list themselves in app stores? There are 1 billion applications between various different stores that we have currently. That's an innovation. So innovation need not be a product. It's an idea which was innovated, which had enormous amount of good to you, good to the mankind. You can go and get a piece of software without going physically anywhere. You can evaluate them right online. And the third one that they did was also the voice. Actually, we should acknowledge the people that Dr. Raj Reddy was one of the first few people in the world who actually wrote algorithms on speech recognition. His PhD way back in 1960 at Stanford was in speech recognition. But then the technology was perfected by companies like Apple to make sure that now computers can recognize your voice and listen to you. You also saw one other interesting one is that we have also got Aadhaar has some of this, but Aadhaar is of a recent origin. But even if you look at iPhone, it does face recognition. It has your fingerprint recognition. All these recognitions are possible. That was an innovation of putting together into an iPhone. Thereafter, we saw this amazing stuff called camera. And I keep joking with people, everybody now has a camera and everybody has become a cameraman or camera person, right? Perfect, absolutely. And several people tell me that, look at this, Mr. Reddy, how nice my picture is. I don't belittle them, but trust me, technology is also playing an important role in getting that amazing picture with you. You have ability to take those pictures on the phone, all right, but the technology that's underlying it in terms of image enhancement, image stability, all these are also new innovations that came in because of an Apple iPhone or a smartphone for that matter. And everybody said, if you look at the devices that were there as phones, huge, you literally have to have a sling, put it around your neck and hang it around. How many cameras does your phone have? Yes, sir. 5. So that was another humongous innovation of trying to say that you can build cameras of a higher precision and you don't need to adjust your lens, etc. It does it automatically. We'll come to those technologies in a minute. But he built a camera into it. That was yet another innovation. Thereafter, you look at the chips that are built in. Actually, I used to build computers in the 1980s, where just the CPU used to be a board which is 24 inches by 18 inches. That's the CPU board with a number of chips that were there. A memory used to be another 24 inches by 18 inches. Communication used to be an Ethernet, which is the same size board. But all of that is now condensed into something called the A18 chip, which drives both computing as well as graphics. And you see the graphics that are there is that it does now something like 2532 by 1172 is number of pixels. That's the elements that you can address on your screen. That's the refinement to which it has come down to. So the other innovation that they did was the chips, A-series chips, which have both the computing as well as the graphics. And then there are many other things they did. And finally, I'll only call out one more called 5G technologies. The ability to communicate with each other with bandwidth improved. They built in all that hardware into this system to communicate. Now with 5G, you have latency levels which are less than 1 millisecond. So all this is a classic example of innovation. But do you people realize one more thing? All this is not computers. All this is not software. The biggest challenge that Steve Jobs had in designing this phone, you can't believe where it came from, was all about this unbreakable glass. Dow Corning, which was the largest and the best, even still they exist at this point of time in glass technologies, said this is not possible. Steve Jobs, with his optimism, told them that, look, he will sell 1 million phones. What would be the cost? They give him a cost. He said, still not okay. I'll sell 10 million phones. The cost became accessible. You know how many smartphones are sold now around the world? Last quarter, the quarter which just ended in June 30th, they sold 133 million of them. So that is, glass technology was other innovation that they did. Glass is not computers. So therefore, or you look at the packaging that has happened on this system. Packaging is not computers again. Packaging is a specialization design engineers have in them. And I don't want to break my phone. I'm scared to break my phone, but I drop it, nothing happens to it. Several times it slipped from my hand and fell down. And what is that? And that is basically your ability to design rugged structures. That's structural engineering. So innovation to me has many facets other than just computers. Let me tell you my second story. My second story is all about what is still not made the impact. I'm very fascinated about it. I picked up these 3 stories today because I'm very fascinated with these 3 stories. The first one was, I thought, you will relate yourself very well to it, and that was your smartphone. This, some of you who are interested must be reading about it. It's called a flying car. The cars will start flying fairly soon. And the cars have started getting licenses to do that. Actually, this picture, you might not see too well, is from a company called LF Aeronautics. They're based in California, and they just got a permission from Federal Aviation Authority for flying their cars. Limited purpose, all right, but then still they got permission at this point of time. Look at this car now a little more closely. How many motors does it have? It has as many as 12 of them. It has to run on the ground. So there are 4 wheels and 4 corners. There are 4 motors that are built into it. It has to do a vertical takeoff. You can imagine the piece of metal with 2 people on board trying to lift off by itself. It has 8 more motors built into it. Actually, as it gets airborne, it turns around. So you might say, Mr. Reddy, what happens to the passengers? Actually, along with the turning around of the car, you see the seats turning around. So instead of people sitting one beside the other, when the car flies, people are sitting one below the other. The 2 tiers in which they sit. Amazing innovation. And then, actually, if you look at the aerodynamics of the car, the best of engineers who do this design work is Swedes. Bugatti, that's the name of the company which does it. They did the aerodynamics part of it. It is a nightmarish problem because on the ground, the airflow is different from when it starts flying around in the air. So it's all about aerodynamics at that point of time. And the biggest challenge further, if you look at it, is, I said earlier, is the mass of metal that has to fly all around. So you have to make it as light as possible. So how do you make material light? It is material science. You have carbon fiber reinforced metals at this point of time, which are the ones which are making the body frame of this car. So what does this teach us? It teaches us innovation is just what you have as a mind block. What you think is a limitation. If you open your mouth and say everything is possible, try it out. This is a classic example of how people are now trying to say mobility can be in the air. One of the things that I'm sure every one of us dislike is all about waiting in the car or the bus or the scooter or the cycle for that matter in a mad traffic jam. You don't have that. You just lift off. And the other thing all of us are very concerned about is about sustainability, the amount of carbon emission that's happening. And what is this car all about? It's all electric car. It's an EV. All the 12 motors I talked about are all electric powered motors. There is enormous amount of challenge in terms of battery technologies. Because you can't say my car will fly for 10 miles, 12 miles, and so on and so forth. You have to have a very decent long range. What does this have? It flies for, it is on the ground, it goes for 300 kilometers. When it flies, it does about 120 kilometers at this point of time. But again, what is battery? Battery is not computers. It's not computer science. It is a completely different technology. They're all working on nickel, cadmium, ammonium, sulfur batteries at this point of time. It's chemical engineering. So therefore, in this example, what you see is that a massive complex problem, using imagination, people are finding a solution to it. So this is my second example. And again, I like to emphasize, because I know there are as many as 6 or 8 disciplines of engineering from where I have my audience. I believe at RJKUT, we have chemical engineering, we have metallurgical engineering, no denying the mechanical engineering, the electrical engineering, the electronics engineering, and the computer science. But look at this example that I have, and I can give you innumerable number of them. They require a lot more skills that are to solve these problems. I gave you an example of metallurgy because metals are involved. I gave you an example of electrical, nickel, cadmium battery cells being done. So what are and then more importantly, they're doing sustainability. Let me move on to my third story, my last story, all right. This is another fascinating story of mine. I love this story. This is all about something called the capsule endoscopy. Have people heard about this? Yes, no, yes. Very good. I'm so glad I heard yes very loudly. Thank you. So, but look at this a little more closely. It's the size of a slightly larger capsule. Actually, I think the dimensions are somewhere on the screen. I think it's an oversized capsule is what you can call it. And what do they do with this? Is people swallow it. More often than not, it doesn't require any intervention. Just with water, you can swallow it. And it completely traverses through the gastric path of a human being. And as it traverses, it's taking continuous pictures. It's taking imagery at this point of time. It is just not taking imagery, it is transmitting the imagery. So you look at the miniaturization of a capsule that all of us swallow for some good reason or bad reason. But in that size, what have people now packed inside? The version that I know of has cameras on both sides, because you can't know which side is really looking at the space that you want. So they transmit images from both sides of the capsule. So each camera has a 160-degree view. So between both of them, they get you about 320 degrees of it. The second one is that it is transmitting. So therefore, sorry, I'll go back. The second thing that you have to recognize is that the track that you have inside is not brightly illuminated. You can't see it. So you have a camera that's going on. I have seen real life, real imagery. It's bright sunlight inside your stomach when it traverses. That's the power it has. And a third one thereafter is that it is transmitting. Actually, the older versions were transmitting the signals for people to wear yet another belt-like device, the small little electronic box on it. Like it used to be a belt, in which all the images were being stored, and the doctor was taking that and then putting onto a computer, downloading into a computer system to understand the whole GI tract. I'll come to that in a minute, a little more on that. But now even that particular box is not required. You have your iPhone, it downloads, it uploads all the imagery into your iPhone itself, because primarily it's now down to a Bluetooth technology. And then for 8 continuous hours, it has to have light, It has to take pictures. It has to transmit pictures. Look at the amount of energy that's required. So in a capsule, human imagination brought in this innovation of packing 2 cameras, enormous amount of light, the electronics, and the batteries to completely take pictures for 8 long hours of a GI track, which is clouded by darkness. And actually, they believe that endoscopy or colonoscopy, one goes from the top, one comes from the bottom, both of these were not in a position to see the small intestine so well. But today they are in a position to see the small intestine so well because of this capsule endoscopy. Where does this innovation start? It started in Israel. Where is it now? It's global. Actually, people who Medtronic makes it, Abbott makes it, they call them by different names. But the fact is, that's all over the world. So if you look at this a little more closely, you'll find that there are enormous amount of advances that have happened. But more interestingly, I follow this technology closely out of sheer interest, and given that I know one of the best gastroenterologists in the world is very, very dear to us. So therefore, because of him, I also follow it. And what are they now trying to do is that this capsule can actually scoop a biopsy and bring it out with it. Because still people have to see the tissue at some instances. Or the second one is it can do drug delivery on its own. They're now fitting motors into the capsule to say it doesn't, now it actually flows through gravity. They're saying, no, we'll control the speed at which it moves. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that an absolute ultimate imagination that we can think about in a healthcare system? What has this done to us? This and many more devices of this nature have done to us. It has prolonged the life of a human being. In 500 years back, the average lifespan of a human being used to be 41 years across the world. What has it grown to be? It has grown to be 70 years now. So in 500 years, we have expanded the lifespan of a human being by 30 years, which means 17 years of research is giving a longevity of 1 year. So by the time all of you grow, it's not going to be 71 years any longer. You probably will get closer to the number called 100 years. Because again, the acceleration of technology does not mean it will take 17 years on average to increase the lifespan of a human being by a year. So that is the marvels of these technologies that are happening. And who is making all this happen? There's a biologist, there's a doctor, a medical doctor who understands the whole gut system. And there are engineers who work with them. Engineers with different disciplines. You look at the sum total of what all this means. Somehow, I think there's a little more light, so it doesn't show up too well, and apologies for that. But what does it show up is finally 4 things that the technology is doing to all of us. I just gave you an example of improved healthcare. I think that's the necessity for every one of us. And certainly, we have seen technology has helped in terms of increasing the human lifespan. The second thing that it has done is created enormous amount of wealth for us. And it also created jobs. Take the example of wealth creation with Apple. You know how much that company is valued at this point of time? Somebody said the right number? $3 trillion, right. So what's the sum total of the market capitalization of all companies together in India right now? It's less than $2 trillion. So one single company called Apple, if you look at Apple as $3 trillion, Microsoft 2.5 trillion, Google is at about 1.5 trillion, look at the company's wealth. They're all technology companies, right? The enormous amount of wealth that they created. And one single company called Apple created 150,000 net new jobs in the last 10 years. And our estimates are always that when you say net new jobs, they would create indirect jobs to the extent of about 4 to 5 times. So technology has helped us in terms of creating new jobs. Technology has improved the comforts of people. You don't need to, the flying cars are there. You don't need to wait any longer in terms of traffic jams. So therefore, there is an element there, I missed about it, but let me share with you. The civil engineering part comes in there because you're not going to be laying new runways. You don't have airports. These are all vertical takeoff and landing machines, OLTS called, EVOLTS. And as a result of it, your road has to be strong enough to allow these cars to take off in certain patches, may not be every part of the road. So who does that part of it? The civil engineer does part of it. And finally, if you look at it, what is technology doing is that it's improving in the sustainability. We were emitting so much amount of carbon. At this point of time, with the amount of research that we have done into solar, into alternative energies, like, hydrogen will become very true very soon. I believe even in India, there are going to be hydrogen buses coming up in Delhi or in the neighborhood of Delhi very soon. So sum total of the story of technology, it has improved the health of human beings. It improved the comforts of human beings. It certainly provided the economic upliftment, and it's certainly providing a better future, not just for us, for our children and our grandchildren too. So therefore, what I have for calling to you at this point of time. So the first one I said, you need to build those bridges. What I mean by building bridges is all about collaboration. None of these that we talked about as examples so far happened in isolation. They're all global endeavors. People collaborated globally to make these reality. Certainly, if you look at it, in terms of having collaboration, you enhance your creativity. I keep saying one person's imagination is far, far superior to 2 people working together as opposed to 2 people working in isolation. So teamwork, build those bridges in terms of collaboration. And we've also seen by building bridges that by collaboration, you are improving your efficiency. Efficiency not for yourself, for the team. And as a result, your ability to solve the problems increases quite dramatically. And as a result of this working together, we have seen learning increases quite dramatically. People learn much better. We'll come to that, is one of the themes that we talk about now, and it's a part of the new education policy too, is peer level learning. You don't need to learn from the teacher to the student. Between students, they can also learn from each other. And finally, by collaborating, you build trust. You build relationship with people, which will make you feel much more comfortable. To me, what is trust is under promise, over deliver. And let's move on. What I mean by saying the next one is breaking the limits. Is we talked about what did these people do, whether it is the ELF motors or it is Apple or capsule endoscopy, is you just stretch your imagination to a level which no one else thinks about it. So the end result is that you can push the technologies to the boundaries. There's nothing called limit for technology. It's the human imagination, which I keep saying is the only limitation. You have an ability by stretching yourself in solving complex problems. You're in a position to adapt to a changing environment. And You're certainly building products by using this technology for safety. Today, if you look at some of the cars, they come with these features called obstacle control. If you have somebody coming across the street, it stops, it doesn't move. At times it does frighten you off, but they are built into the cars right now. There's obstacle control, there is lane control. If you leave a car in a particular lane, it just cruises at that lane. So long as it sees an obstacle, it slows down on its own. So therefore, you are in a position to build safety into the cars. And by certainly stretching, you are in a position to certainly solve collaboratively many problems. So what do I think that you should do to make sure that you become like any of these innovators that I talked about or innovations that I talked about? The first and the foremost is, as I see forward, knowledge is power. The people who will become strong, who will become successful, are people who have knowledge. And knowledge is going to be the supreme way in which you will succeed in life. And you, of course, have the advantage compared to people like me. I went to a class, the knowledge was concentrated with one person. And who was that person? My teacher. I stretched myself a little more, I found a textbook. I took a longer walk, I went to the library, I found a book which had an alternative way of teaching. What do you have luxury of life right now? You have so many alternative ways of. Your teacher is not the only source. That I keep saying is education 1.0, the Gurukul. What you're now is in a world which is physical and digital systems, where you can go onto the net. You can now Google around for the best guy who can teach structures to you. And you can listen to his lecture on a YouTube. Otherwise, you can go to ChatGPT, ask questions all about structures. You will learn as much, if not more, than many others that you think about. So what you have got as an advantage at this point of time is multiple sources from where you can learn. So that does not, some people tell me, sir, I'm working very hard. And I keep saying that's not an excuse in life at all. Working hard does not tire people. Working hard makes people smart, according to me. And you have yet another luxury of life. You don't need to learn in a classroom. You don't learn from your room where you're sitting. You are now sitting in a bus, you're still learning, right? I don't waste my time at all. I Google around, I can learn about new things. I all learn about flying cars or on the, while I travel around. So you have the ability to, it's all question of your attitude, therefore. The attitude will make that big difference. And the second one I wanted to highlight was, you should move away from this rote learning. I by heart and I vomit thereafter. That's not knowledge. That's just, your ability to have to by heart things. There's nothing called retention in your brain. It's all here temporary. It's done. You don't have knowledge anymore with you. It's very superficial. Whereas if you start thinking about knowledge as something which is very, very much to do with critical thinking, that is, you logically analyze every situation that you have in your life. And you, on top of it, you put design thinking, which is more of creativity. A combination of that makes you knowledgeable. That to me is knowledge. Critical thinking and design thinking combination together. That's what you need to practice if you also want to be on the leading edge of innovation. And the third thing that I wanted to highlight is you have to get into this mode of experiential learning. Don't leave the knowledge with you as just theoretical or bookish. Start working with your hands. Start experimenting with what you do. You go to a civil engineering class, they tell you all about road laying. Go back and take a small piece of road somewhere in a lane and try it out yourself. That's when you start saying you understand, it becomes assimilated, it becomes integral part of your system itself. So we are trying to push this very much into the classrooms itself. But I think what is very important is that you should definitely start using your hands, experience it, build things. Several instances, people say, I designed a PC board. I keep saying, okay, go build it. They say, no, I don't know how to build it. I'll give it to my technician who goes and builds it. No, there's no demarcation. There's no Chinese wall between you and your technician saying the technician will build and I will only design. The world is all moving towards people building on their own. Finally, the fourth one that I will advocate for you in terms of knowledge today is knowledge is becoming very interdisciplinary. It does not sit in silos any longer. So as much as I said, there are 6 or 8 or 12 engineerings that we can think about, but do not get siloed into saying, I'm a mechanical engineer, I learn all about mechanical engineering. I was a mechanical engineer by training. I learned all about automobiles. But you look at an automobile today, we talked about the flying car. What does it have? It has electric motors. It does have 4 wheels, all right. It has a chassis, all right. It has a frame. The aerodynamics, you can call it mechanical engineering. You can always call it aerodynamics by a subject by itself. And you also have the niceties of life, the softer things. The amount of effort that's been put in terms of designing the user interface, UI, UX, is enormous in every device that you have today. So you have to understand the softer things to life too. So actually, I'm advocating at the highest levels with the Ministry of Education that we should allow people to do 50% of the courses outside their core area that they specialize in. Because if you look at mechanical engineering, in automobile, there's so much amount of AI and ML or AR, VR, all those also flow into it. So the last thing that I would advocate there in terms of knowledge is make sure that you become as much multidisciplinary. Don't stick to that saying that I am an electrical engineer, I'm a computer science. Even if you're a computer science, go and do those courses, which will make you a good engineer for any application thereafter. No, I think you should turn this way. Right, I got it. No? Yes. So the next thing that I have is you have to spur innovation within you. And spurring innovation is all about these 4 or 5 elements I keep talking about. The first one is, how does innovation come to you? Is challenge the status quo. Why does it work this way? Can I think about making it work much differently? There could be a number of instances where things could be very mundane in nature. But what is very important is your ability to start analyzing. I talked about it as design thinking. Your analytical ability to challenge everything, why does it work this way, is the start point for innovation. The second one is start taking risks in life. What you do will not succeed all the time. More often than not, it fails. But every failure has to be a learning exercise for you. You don't fail on the same count one more time. So I actually keep saying in my company, saying that we celebrate failures. We celebrate learnings from failures. And a third one is that if you want to be innovative, if you look at what has happened with these innovations we talked about earlier, it is not that in first round, first shot, they all became successful. It is an extremely iterative process. As they say, engineers need to have strong heart because they can't be successful everything that they attempt on. Even if you lose out, you say, no, there's a better tomorrow for me. I come back and do it. A third one that is important is that you have to definitely be very persistent. Sorry, I talked about persistent. We also see that innovation prospers only in team environment. So work as teams, because the sum total of ideas of a group of people is far superior than ideas of those people individually. So the second one that I urge all of you to do, number one was knowledge. The second one was innovation. My last one, third one, which is equally important and a favorite of mine, is your ability to connect with industry. You can't be now being in isolation. You can't be certainly working in, give me a second, I seem to have got, yes. Working as if, you don't care about what's happening in the world. So therefore, it's very important that you should take very seriously these internships and apprenticeships. Maybe it has come down quite a bit in maybe 10 years back. I used to be very critical about it, that how does the summer projects, where do they get written? Where do they get written? In Hyderabad, in a place called Amirpet. There are so many shops that are there who have got good publishing capabilities. So that guy will change the name of the old project report, put your name, change the pictures, and give it back to you. So actually, you have luxury of life. There's some very nice movie theaters around that place. So people used to go give this shit to that guy saying, this is my name, this is my new project, just put it together. And people used to do and enjoy the movie, come back. The guy had a nice folded, bound project report. You go and submit it, you get your A grade. You might have got a A grade, but what's it worth? It's nothing absolutely. So take these internships, your projects that are there on hand very seriously. Do these apprenticeship programs wherever you get an opportunity. We're trying to move this to a stage where we want to make it absolutely mandatory. And finally, what I started off with was also about entrepreneurship. I think what this nation requires at this point of time is more amount of job creators as opposed to job seekers. We're all very delighted that we are the nation which has the highest population in the world. We're at 1.4 billion people. We're also very delighted we enjoy as a nation something called the demographic dividend. I don't know how many of you understand demographic dividend. A country is supposed to be enjoying demographic dividend if the age group of population between 16 and 60 is more than 50%. Which means people in 16 to 60 years are people who work. And if that population is more than 50%, which means there are more people working in a nation rather than people who are children or the elderly people. India enjoys that. India today has a demographic dividend that's the 16 to 60 years, 63% of Indian population in that age group. So we have enormous amount of capability to work as a nation. And we have seen countries which have demographic dividend in the past have always prospered. A good example of that is South Korea. I think it was first to start with, it was Japan, South Korea, and then it was China. India has that advantage. But here's the challenge that comes out of it. As a result of this population, what we see, as a result of this age of this population, we pulled 1 million people every month in the streets of India seeking jobs. So therefore, with all the technology you have, all that I have told you to inspire you to become more innovators, you should create companies. We should create companies not just for economic benefit, but for creating jobs, making sure the world is a better place to live. So I got 3 mantras for you this evening. If you want to become successful engineer like the innovators I talked about, they're just not, in the interest of time, I limited to 3, but there could be 300 stories or 3,000 stories we can talk about. But what is important to you is that these people had knowledge. That is important. The second thing that's equally important is that you have to innovate. You have to develop that mindset. Innovation is not taught. Innovation is an attitude to me in life. And you definitely have to understand what is required in this universe, whether through industry or through your entrepreneurship. Let me conclude, therefore, by saying, embracing the engineer, and we have to take these challenges. So therefore, engineering is not a science to me. It's not an art. It's a combination of both of them. Certainly do not think that, I become an engineer, I'm all done. I know how to solve a quadratic equation. I could do finite element analysis. I know what is enthalpy, entropy. I could do heat transfer thereafter. That's not just what you need in life. You need a lot more than in life. Your soft skills, your empathy to people, understand the people. So therefore, what you need to do is to unleash yourself, is that in spite of all this risk that you have, bring that positivity in yourself to say, I become a true engineer who will change the face of this world. That's where I'll conclude my talk and wish you all the very best for a successful career for yourself. Thank you. Thank you. Wherever you want, it's coming back.
uh, uh, with us, Professor Hemchandra Reddy, who have been traveling with us in RGUKT the last 4 years. I don't intend to spoil the beauty of the lecture by indulging in a summary, but I'm struck with one beautiful, because we have in the audience not just professionals of engineering industry, but also I see a 97-year-old senior economist from University of Madras, Dr. Sanmukh Sundaram, who has sent me a message that he enjoyed Dr. Mohan Reddy's lecture. He was trying to come back with a very apt comparison of globalization, where we were talking about borderless society. And this is again a borderless, I think, strategy for an engineering. I think one only beautiful summary that one can take home, if you could embrace the engineer in you with all the traits and with all the requirements, well, you can break walls, building bridges. Break walls by building, you just don't break them, but then you need to connect them through appropriate bridges. The way he ended it, the empathy, the way he articulated that nobody, whether it is an entrepreneur, an engineering professional, in isolation, will not be able to. I think if you can embrace in the engineer in you, it is limitless. You can get into technology is all pervasive today. Health, education, any area that you talk about, but you find technology. Technology as an instrument. That's what we used to talk, that it is not globalization per se that is bad. It is marketization that is per se bad. But what we need to do is manage it. Again, manage. I think knowledge is power. If you change your attitude and the way you start your own way of learning, and that I think will make you a successful. You may be a professional, you may be an entrepreneur, you may end up in a different way, but ultimately what is required is you must be successful, but that success is not just, as we learn from Dr. Mohan Reddy, is not in creating wealth for yourself, but then making that wealth available to larger part of the community. Thank you very much, sir. We are grateful to you for a wonderful lecture. I request all my friends, members of the Governing Council, all the directors, Vice Chancellor is here, Chairman State Council, Professor Hemchandra is here, others, I request them to join me in felicitating Dr. Mohan Reddy Garu for gracing the occasion and delivering such a wonderful lecture. I think we can have this bridge of all the three lectures. I think building that bridge of all the three lectures, I think that thread of building all the YSR Memorial Lectures, ultimately I would say that empathy of YSR is seen all through. Grateful to you, sir. Stand up and thank Dr. Mohan Reddy. End of the program, I request for Sanjay Rani, Director, RGUT Campus, RK Valley, to propose a hearty vote of thanks to the chief guest in particular, and to also other guests. So, Sanjay Rani.
Good evening to the dignitaries on the dais, RGUT faculty and students. It's an honor for me to say vote of thanks on the occasion of third YSR Memorial Lecture. I'm expressing my sincere gratitude to today's speaker, Dr. B.V. Mohan Reddy Garu, Padma Shri Awardee, founder, chairman, and member, Senate, for his thought-provoking and inspirational lecture. Sir, today's lecture is very apt for the today's educational scenario, sir. Innovativeness, creativity, and multidisciplinary research. These three keywords, all the faculty and student should focus to grow in their professional career in their respective disciplines. Once again, thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful lecture, sir. My sincere thanks to Honorable Chancellor, Professor K.C. Reddy Garu, Vice Chancellor, Professor Vijay Kumar Garu, for the opportunity given to RK Valley for organize this prestigious program. I am thankful to
1020 viewers online.
Okay, sir. Very good, sir.
1020. Thank you. You can make an announcement. 1020 viewers online.
It's very happy to announce that 1020 viewers and in online today's lecture. I am thankful to Professor Hemchandra Reddy Garu, APSHI Chairman and former Vice Chancellor of RGUT, for gracing on this auspicious occasion, sir. Sir, we always remember for your support and encouragement for the growth and development of RGUT. My sincere thanks to other campus directors, Professor Jairam Reddy Garu, Srinivas Rao Garu, Professor Jagadishwar Reddy Garu, Jagadishwar Rao Garu, advisor, Veena Rao Garu, R&D coordinator, Mohan Rao Garu, for their active participation in today's program. I am thankful to staff and students of faculty, staff, non-teaching staff, and students of RK Valley for their support in organizing today's program and making this program a grand successful. I am thankful to one and all for attending this function. Thank you very much.